I want to thank you for attending this presentation on FDA GMP training given by Compliance Insight. If you have any questions or anything, certainly give us a call. You can also go to our website, www.compliance-insight.com. And I'm going to be talking to you today about the quality audit. This is one of a series of training presentations that can be done on FDA GMP training. And this particular one is going to focus on the quality audit. Thought it quite appropriate to go over this with you today. Now, some of the things I talk about to people are learning the terms and definitions. Unless you have those down, it's very difficult for you to understand what I'm talking about. So some of these things can be used interchangeably. If you go through these, I'm sure you've had some of these used in your company, or if you've heard them used throughout your career perhaps. And there's just sort of a definition, an overview of what these things mean. An assessment is an estimate or determination of the significance or importance or value of something that you see. You're making an assessment. When you do a GMP audit or audit of anything, you make an assessment of the significance, importance, or value of that thing that you see. The audit is a planned, independent, and documented assessment, this is where these tie together, to determine whether agreed upon requirements are met. Compliance means an affirmative indication or judgment that the supplier of a product or service has met requirements. It meets some type of standard that you've established. Conformance, an affirmative indication or a judgment by you that a product or service or material, whatever it happens to be, has met the requirements of the specs or the regulations. A finding is a conclusion of importance based upon observations. Now, I didn't say bad or good. Typically, most people think of a finding or an observation, the next definition here, as something that's bad. It can be good as well. The definition of observation, an item of objective evidence found during an audit. Again, everything here is based upon fact, based upon knowledge, data, fact that you see. It's very important that you, as an auditor, will look at this as you're a fact finder. A quality audit is a systemic and independent examination and evaluation to determine whether quality activities and results of those activities comply with planned arrangements and whether those arrangements are implemented effectively and are suitable to achieve the objectives. A lot of that is you have to take in and understand these things. There's quite a bit of info in this definition. It's a systemic, overall, all-encompassing, independent evaluation to determine if things work like you think they will. Really, boil it down, that's what it gets to. And boil everything down, you get to one term that the FDA looks for, that an auditor looks for, is control. Do you have control? Can you define it? Can you measure it? How do they know they're in control? Those are all questions you should be asking as you look at people and what they do. Purpose of an audit is to examine the effectiveness of management-directed control programs, or lack thereof. And it is management-directed programs, not the line workers, nothing like that. This is management. It falls squarely in management's lap. Provide management with objective feedback based upon the facts, enabling management to make informed decisions. Primary directive of an audit is to be beneficial to the function being audited. It is not to go in and find issues. It is not to get someone fired. It is not to make change on things. It is to be beneficial, to help, to add value to whatever it is that's being done. Audit philosophy. Quality audits are formal, they're systematic, and they're independent. They're based squarely upon facts. Auditors must be fact finders, not fault finders. You have to go in and find the facts. You're not there to find fault. You're not there to point blame. You're there to point out the facts. It's hard for anyone to argue with you if you only point out the facts to them. Audits should not be conducted in a covert manner. There's a time and place for that, and it is probably something that most of us will never get to do. You do not want to do things in a covert manner. You want to do them openly and out front. Types of audits I'm going to talk to you about here. There's 3 basic types. There's all sorts of that you can go through, but I try to break these down just into some simple buckets that people can put things into. And what I'm going to talk to you about here is a product audit, a process audit, and a system audit or systemic audit of something. Now the types of audits, just continuing here. The product, it's a concentration of your activities on one or more products or services. You're focusing on the product. Product doesn't have to be a parenteral vial filled with product. It has to be something that is output. What is output from the lab? It's data. What is the output from production? It's product, tablets, capsules, medical devices, whatever it is, they come out. A process is where you concentrate your activity on the results achieved as a result of the process. What comes out of that process? Where does it all flow to? These two are very similar. It's just a way to approach it a little differently. And a system audit. This is the big one the FDA likes to focus on, is the concentration, the focus, laser pinpoint on the overall quality systems which result in management-directed activities and programs. You look at a system. If you don't know these 6 FDA systems, shoot me an email. I'll send them over to you. Or go on our website and look it up. There's quite a bit there. And it'll talk about the 6 systems from the FDA. Auditor skills and conduct. It's very important for you as an auditor to have great skills and know how to conduct yourself. It's important for success of the audit. If without it, it can really call it into jeopardy. Continuation of services may be interrupted. You may not be able to correct problems. This is all things that you're trying to go in there and focus on. You want to find problems before they get out of hand. Skill development takes time, and it is usually years, and it takes a lot of dedication. And I can tell you this from my own experience with this, is that you will always be learning and adapting to new ways to approach this skill of being an auditor. You always have to be learning. Only times in my life I thought I've learned as much as I can and I'm really in line with this is usually when I found out just how much I needed to learn and improve myself. So I'm always doing it. I'm always going through and improving myself and learning from everyone and everything that I do. Professionalism. Very important that you have great professional approach to conducting an audit. Your appearance, how you dress, how you present yourself. Punctuality, certainly. Tell you, when you're driving to a place or you're trying to get there and you get stuck in traffic, give them a call. Just be professional. Tell them you'll be there as soon as you can. But if you say, I'm going to be there at 9 o'clock, by all means, do your best to be there by 9 o'clock. You don't want to be very early. Don't show up at 8:30 or 8. You don't want to be really late either. Make sure people are aware of what you're doing. Preparedness. Make sure you've got everything that you need in line when you go into a place to do an audit. Plan on it. Prepare for it. Do I need to have steel-toed shoes? Do I need to have a hard hat? Should I bring something? That's what I need to bring. Should I discuss things with you out of courtesy of just making sure I know how to get into the area? There are trade secrets. You may have CDAs or confidentiality agreements that you have to put in place. There may be union policies. I have gone into places before in which there were union activities going on. I had to be aware of what I could or could not say and ask, and I just walked through and I understood what the rules were, and I made life easier on everybody by just following those. Fairness is very critical to me. I can tell you this, I'm willing to make allowances for infrequent, insignificant human error. What I'm looking for are system failures. I want to be fair to people. We're all human. We all make mistakes. If you listen to me in this presentation, you can understand I'm not a professional announcer on these types of things, but I do go out and I train people and I try my best, and I will make an utterance. I will make a couple of ums and spaces in here, but I really do truly try to make things work. You should take that into consideration when you look at people doing activities. If it's a human error, it doesn't mean anything, you don't find any other instances of that thing going on, then it's just infrequent. It's just a human error. If it's significant, obviously point it out, but if it's not, just point it out to them and go on. You're not there to hammer them over the head with everything. You're there, again, to be a benefit. Remain calm whenever you go in, and no matter what goes on. Just keep a cool head. Don't overreact to issues. Don't start beating on people because of a small little error. Watch your demeanor. Always be friendly and nice and courteous. Don't incite nor participate in any problems that may be going on. Don't add fuel to the fire for that type of thing. Any activity like this can nullify the audit, can certainly make it much more difficult to go through and make these things happen. And again, you're trying to make your life easy. You're trying to make the life of the auditee easier. You want to make this a success. Be polite and courteous. Considerate, helpful, please and thank you. I'm always very cognizant of that. I do the best I can. I don't always say please, and I don't always say thank you, but I try to make a real effort at it. I thank people for bringing lunch in during lunches. I thank people for helping, going above and beyond the call of duty, getting stuff for me. You really have to play the kind and courteous person, and you should be. People are really there trying to help out, and you want to recognize that. Be direct and concise. Ask questions clearly. Don't beat around the bush. Sometimes I can do that, trying to get my point across, but I really try to get to the question. Make your statements clearly. You may have to take time out to formulate what you're going to say, so do that. But don't confuse people by rattling on for 5 minutes and saying, did you understand the question? And you say, I didn't know you asked a question. You lost me about 3 minutes ago. I'm still trying to figure out where you're going. Recognize effort. Now, I tell you, a lot of people put a lot of effort into doing a lot of things, and sometimes those things don't work out the best, but a lot of them do. You should recognize people and companies when they do a good job. When something is working really well, tell them. Put it in your audit notes. Talk about it during the closeout meeting. Make sure that they are well deserving of recognition. Give it to them. Characteristics of an auditor. I'm going to talk to you about some things here, but just what it is that I typically look for in an auditor. You should start working on these to make sure that you have these. Competence, communication, listening, independence, observation ability, that you can see, that you have objectivity. You aren't there to grind an axe. You're judging. How do you judge? Are you fair? Competence. Talk about this a bit. Has to be developed and maintained. You have to have formal training. This is why you're probably here going through this now. You want to have experience going out there. Shadow audit with some people. Ask them, can I go out with you to audit a site? Just develop those skill sets. Understand what it is you're doing, why you're doing it. Do you like it? Can you build upon that? Understand the questions to ask. Technical language skills, both verbal and written. You want to be able to speak the speak. If someone's talking to you about lyophilization, eutectic point, anything along that line, you want to be able to understand what it is they're talking about. Exposure to various processes and equipment. It's just getting that experience. Get a broad base as you can of various activities, from active drug ingredients to bottles being made by the plastic. Look at the laboratory. Look at computers. Anything that you can glean as a bit of a skill, a knowledge, is great as an auditor, because that builds up your knowledge base, your understanding, how things work. And again, assist others with audits, just shadow them, make sure you go out there and get just the base, the knowledge, the experience. Communication, very complex. Very, very complex. More complex than I think I realize a lot of times. And I've been at this for a long time. It's process of sending and receiving messages and data. You have to think of it that way. It's like a computer. You're sending and receiving data and messages all the time. You're looking around. You're feeling the temperatures. You're sitting in a seat. You're feeling tired. You're seeing how people look and communicate with you. Their tone, their inflection, how they fold their arms, all sorts of things. Hidden messages that may be transmitted include anger, confusion, apathy, boredom. You ever sit there and try to talk to someone and they start yawning? And you say, oh, okay, well, I guess that's very interesting to you. And it could be boredom. It could be just that they didn't get a night's sleep because their new baby is awake all night. You have to understand that and try to understand where they're coming from. But if they indeed are bored, then you may want to focus on someone else or something else. Hostility, concern, contempt, fatigue, all sorts of things that can come across. These hidden messages affect the atmosphere either positively or negatively. It's a two-way street. You've got to understand that. And it's also a two-way street that you're communicating those same things back to the auditee. They could sit there trying to help out things, and they're saying, well, this auditor seems angry or hostile. You have to make sure you don't reflect that. It'll have certainly a direct impact on the audit. Ask the same question in a different way if you suspect something or want to verify something going on. This is a communication skill. I can tell you as an auditor, I've used it many times. How do you clean the equipment? If the equipment is cleaned via this. Or ask open-ended questions. When you clean the equipment, you dismantle part A and then part B, right? Yes or no? Ask other people not immediately present when the previous answers were given. Do they tell you, I clean part A and then part B? Or do they say, no, I clean part B and then C and then A? Ask the same question the next day. Is this really how you clean this? Tell me, how do you clean this? Ask to be shown how to clean the equipment. Actual physically being there, watching it. Verify what was conveyed to you with the SOP is indeed true and correct. They say what they do what they say. That's following the SOP. Hidden messages can be intentional or not. It could be as simple as body movements, be facial expressions, vocal intonations. These all could impact it either intentionally or not. If I'm trying to get something from people and they're delaying me, I may start giving some vocal communication. I might give some body movement communication that I'm getting annoyed and I really want this info. Why are you not giving it to me? Once a message is either delivered or received, intentional or not, you can't unreceive it. You can't unsend it. It is impossible. Once it's out there, it's there. It is the auditor's responsibility to be clear and understood with messages being sent. International obstacles. Very critical that you understand this if you go into different areas, even in the same country. You could have different approach to how things are done. Talk here about international, but it could also be inside the same country. If you're dealing with different people, different areas, if you go from the Northeast to the South or the West to the central part of the United States, all those things can have big impact, big factors on how you communicate and how those people communicate to you. In this particular instance, I give here, Japanese often nod when someone else speaks. That is not meaning that they understand what you're saying. They could have no clue what you're talking about, but they're nodding their head. Typically, early on in my life, I would have looked at that as someone's telling me, yes, they understand what I'm saying. That's not the case with this. Interpreters can often be used, but you have to get people that have the right technical expertise, and you also have to understand regional dialects. If you're going to China, there are numerous languages spoken there. You have to make sure that you get the right person that speaks the right language for that particular place. Although communication is very important, and equally, and I will argue, more important skill is often overlooked, and that skill is listening. You can ask most men and their wives that do they listen, and it's no, they have terrible listening skills. You've got to be able to listen and actually hear and understand what is being said to you. Not only what's being said, but what is not being said to you. They can tell you lots of things, and you're listening, you're picking up on this information, and you're trying to discern what is it that they said. They said, yes, they clean this, but they weren't giving you the body language that that was really the case. It's necessary for you to filter out what I call external noise from unfamiliar surroundings and activities. It's really tough when people are talking in various areas and I'm trying to listen to someone speaking to me. I have a bad habit of picking up what other people are saying and trying to hear that. So I have to really focus on the person talking to me. Excess external noise may lead to lack of concentration, loss of thought, all those things. It sends a very poor message if you don't filter that out. Non-listening. Yeah, you've all been there. You've seen this. Information overload. Someone is speaking to you. You ask, how do I clean a spatula? 3 hours later, and they're telling you about nanoparticle technology on this piece of equipment, the spatula, and how the cleaning agent cleans down to this and what goes, and it's just too much. It's information overload. Your brain only takes so much information, and then you start shutting down. You start thinking on other things, thinking about what the last response was or the next question. You've got to focus on what's being said to you right now. Keep that information, write it down, understand it, and then move on to the next question. Or if you have something with the last response, say, wait. Before you go on any further, I want to go back and address this. So make sure you don't have those bad habits. Since a person can hear over 3 times faster than one speaks in average conversation, it's very easy for you to get lost. Your mind wanders. You start thinking about your daughter's school recital. You start thinking about what you're going to have for dinner that night. You start thinking about your review coming up next week. All those things can have a big impact on how you listen. Good listening certainly takes practice and lots of concentration. It is a habit that you really have to continually hammer away at and build upon. Paraphrasing is a good technique to test your level of comprehension and concentration. Practice this with some folks. Say, hey, I'm going to ask you a question. You give me the response, and then I'm going to repeat back to you what I thought I heard you say. And see if this really works. It's a good back and forth between auditors to practice these skill sets, both from speaking, listening, and auditing, paraphrasing a question back and forth to verify that you have indeed gathered the right, proper information. There are 4 types of non-listening behavior. You have what's called a defensive listener. They listen beyond what is being said and often read more into what you said than what was actually spoken. They take offense with it. Well, what do you mean by that? Or, well, how do you mean this? And that is them putting up their defense shields. They're bristling. You've heard people talk about that. They bristle, and it is, hey, wait a minute. I didn't mean any offense by this. I'm just trying to ask the question and understand what's going on. That's a defensive listener. You have an insensitive listener. They don't pay attention to nonverbals being communicated. Do this trick. Walk by people in the hallway. You do every day, and someone says, well, hi, Troy, how you doing? And I say, great. And they say, great. And they walk on. I actually did this once, and a person walked by me, and they said, hi, Troy, how you doing? And I said, terrible. And they said, great. And they walked on. They didn't catch what I said. And this insensitivity is, I may look bad. I may look tired. I may have my tie undone. I may have my hair messed up. I may just look totally dejected, and no one picks up on it. That's an insensitive listener. A communication hog, someone who talks, and really don't say a whole lot. They're just filling up communication, and you, again, you will take only a certain amount of information in, then you'll start losing it. Sometimes that is an approach by people to try to throw an auditor off base, and they just keep talking. You've got to put a stop to that and say, no, don't keep speaking on this. I've got my answer. I need to look into something else. A pseudo-listener. They may exhibit appropriate listening cues, as in nodding or uh-huh. Anyone out there who has a teenage son or daughter can probably understand this. You can talk to them and say, clean your room, and they say, uh-huh. Did you clean your room? Uh-huh. And you go in and look, and it looks like a bomb went off inside it. It's terrible. You can say, okay, come on. Did you hear what I said? No, I was trying to focus on this new song, or I was thinking about Sally or Johnny or blah, blah, blah. Whatever it is, they're not listening to you. Often indicates the listener is bored with you, they're preoccupied with something else, or they really believe what you're saying is redundant. I don't have to know it. Independence. That's a great skill set of an auditor. You should hold no bias toward the department, the people in the department, the operation, whatever it is. You can't hold bias toward them. There should be no monetary involvement or prior personal involvement. There should have no influence from management. I've certainly been asked by management before to go out, audit a facility, and by the way, they need to pass because we've already signed the contract with them. Okay, I'm going to go in and audit, and my audit's going to be based upon the facts. You signing the contract has nothing to do with me. I will go in and do an audit, and we will base our response, how we act with them, upon this data, this knowledge, the facts. You have to act upon the facts. Auditors should have freedom and trust to report audit findings with the knowledge that management will support those findings. If your management will not support those findings, perhaps it's time for you to gain a lot of skill sets as best you can and start thinking of potentially moving up and being in charge of the department, or finding another company or another department for which you can work. I hate to put it to you in those terms, but sometimes it's best for you to think of other things, and if management is not there to support you, then there's a real issue. Observation skills. You have to have the ability to pay attention to detail, to look at the detail, to understand why things happen, what makes it tick. Analytical thoughts, substantiate it with objective evidence. Just the facts. includes receiving messages, an inquisitive outlook. You note the obvious and the obscure. What's behind the door? What's behind the wall? As I say here, it's your ability to connect the dots and draw all these observations together and understanding what makes the system work and function that makes you truly a good auditor. Objectivity is a great skill set. It pertains to the facts as they are presented or found during the audit. You're objective. Your personal bias, your personal opinion should not be an influencing factor. Just because you haven't seen it done before, just because you may have done it and it didn't work, but they've been doing it for years and it's working, should not play a factor into how you look at that action or activity. Auditors must have the ability to overcome personal beliefs and your preconceived value judgments. Talking about judging, you are the judge. You are looking at something going on and you're trying to understand, is this compliant? What interpretation of the documents is correct? Is it really true what they do and how they do it, and is it compliant with the GMPs? Is an observation outside the scope of the audit? You have to understand, I'm here to look at something within A to D, and everything that falls in here, and I see something, it might be involved with, say, safety. Well, am I there to watch safety? No, that's outside my skill set. But I can look at it and say, if it's safety and I have a concern with it, I might point it out and say, I'm not a safety person, but you probably want to look into that. You have to ask the question, is the level of compliance acceptable? Is the audit progressing as planned? Am I on track? Am I on schedule? Judging requires you to be open-minded and aware of your own filtering system. It's like wearing those rose-colored glasses. You have to understand everything you do is based upon your training and your experience in this world. And if you don't understand that and think I'm approaching it like a robot, it's not the way it is. You have to look at it and say, everything I look at is based upon my experience. I like it or I don't like it. Don't draw a conclusion until you have all those facts, important things, facts. Don't draw a conclusion until those are in. Now, auditor problems. I'm going to talk to you about this. I sort of like this. I put a joke on this thing here. Come to the dark side, Luke. And this is really the thing with this. It's auditor problems. Things that you may encounter, things that you may do. Antagonism. You have to be prepared to encounter it and prevent it. If someone antagonizes you, it may be an attempt to end or nullify the audit. It may be going badly and they just want to discredit you. It's crucial that you remain firm in the audit purpose and objective. Don't engage in argument with anybody. Reassure the auditee that the audit is for the benefit of both parties. You're there to make a benefit. Explain the purpose of the audit at the start and make sure everyone's on board with what you're there to do. Don't surprise them in the middle of an audit and say, oh yeah, I'm here looking at part B as well. Time eaters. I've seen this many times. That I go in, people talk to me ad nauseum till I'm ready to say, okay, wait, that's fine, but I'm here to look at X. I'm not here to talk about everything associated with it. Long lunches. I've had places where I've gone to and taken a 2.5 hour lunch, and I came back and I was not amused and said, come on, this is crazy. Let's have lunch brought in. Let's keep things on track, and I'm here to do an audit, and we have to get this done. Make sure that they are aware of your time frame and that they're not trying to eat up time. And if they are, you're going to have to really take control of the audit and really focus and get the audit done properly. Evasive. People are evasive probably because they don't have the information or they don't want to really give you that information. Be it right or wrong, good or bad, you can't make the call on that. you can say people don't sometimes want to give you that information. It's a red flag. I can tell you right now, when someone's evasive of me, I try to find out why. Typically it is because something egregious went on that shouldn't have, and they're trying to steer me clear of that so I don't find it. Again, if they really understood that, yeah, this is a benefit to both of us to do this audit and bring this out in the light, they would go over these things with me. And I appreciate those types of audits where I go in and, yes, I understand you had problems, you fixed it, I'll make a note of it, and we'll move on. But if you try to hide it, that's when I start wondering, what else did you hide? Probe the response, make sure you understand root cause of what's happened. Make sure that you follow through with this. Sympathy. Human relations sometimes can interfere with the outcome. You have sympathy for the company, the department, the person, whatever it is. They may sit there and say, I'm overwhelmed, I have a real bad issue at home, whatever goes on. You can sympathize with them, but you've got a job to do. And the worst thing you could do is give them a little bit of slack when you find something and you say, I'd really like to get this fixed, but I don't want them to get in trouble. And that's problematic because you're doing neither of you any good by skipping over it. You've got to make sure you empathize with them, but you're there to be a benefit and to make things work. And it'll all work out. It typically does. You have to be aware of this sort of an issue that may go on. Glossing over things. That refers to last-minute band-aid effects on things. I tell you this, glossing typically does not hide neglected issues, certainly of a larger or more serious nature. I can say last-minute housekeeping's fine, but glossing means I've gone through, I have 5 SOPs, I look at them, they're all signed on the same date, which just happened to be the 2 days before I got to the site to audit. That means people were going through quickly trying to clean things up, and they were signing everything. There's no way all those people reviewed all those SOPs effectively and signed them all off. And that really indicates to me that they're glossing over this and there's some real problems at the site. Bribery is really a bad situation. I can tell you this, if anyone comes up to you, and it doesn't have to be cash, it could be something of value. If they try to give you this to sway your opinion one way or the other of an audit, then highly suggest you stop the audit, you leave, you go back to your company or your department, whatever it is, and you talk to your manager. Don't talk to anybody along the way. Don't say, oh, I was just bribed and this is what they were giving me, blah, blah, blah. Go to your manager, your supervisor, your VP, whoever it is, talk to them. I'd seriously say you really have to go over what was being said, and don't overblow this because someone offered you a cup of coffee. But if someone's offering you a briefcase, that's a $200 briefcase for just saying everything was good, that's a problem. You want to make sure you avoid that at all costs. Just continuing on with bribery, I can tell you it usually involves the auditee befriending the auditor, involves outside time perhaps with this, wining and dining, sports game, concerts, whatever it is. I can tell you, you really want to avoid these things. Think about this. If you're there auditing someone or a group, and they want to take you out to a sports game or a concert, are you really being objective? Are you maintaining your independence from that group or that company? You can't get involved with these things. You have to be able to be a good, skilled auditor and avoid stuff like this. Don't get caught in this by the time you get to the end of it and you say, wait a minute, I really got pulled into this unbeknownst to me, and before I knew it, I was well into this hole. I stop digging, pull back out of that hole, go to your supervisor, talk to him, profess what's been going on, and just try to understand the impact something like that could have had. Sort of a tactics chart here. This is a great chart for you to look at and understand. It gives you the auditee tactics, things that may be going on, and the auditor response, how to react to these things. Just a quick review of these things, and I'm not going to go over all these. They're here for you to use at your leisure, and hopefully you can gain some good information out of this and try to help you as an auditor overcome maybe some of the tactics used by people. Just continuing with some of these tactics. I'm not going to go over again all of these. Just understand these are some ways to respond to these tactics and make sure you're a success. Another way that I look at problems, and this could be either the auditor or the auditee, is do it my way, you twit, dimwit. It's ego trips for the auditor, rules by intimidation, blasts the auditee's self-esteem. It really is something you have to look at and say, there may be more than one way to approach the problem, and typically there are. One of the best skill sets I've ever seen in an auditor was the ability to think about different options available for a person to resolve a problem. And I can tell you, dimwit is definitely an approach that can be counterproductive. Either way, you have to look at it. If they're coming to you as an auditor or you're going to them, that is going to be the bad way to end this audit. I can tell you right now, it will not be productive, and you're going to throw up defense shields by both parties in order to not go down this route. Auditor responsibilities. When you're an auditor, you have several responsibilities, and I can tell you, in your life as an auditor, by both example and action that you take, you are charged to make sure these are built into your skill sets. You have to keep the client informed of the audit progress. Keep them abreast of anything major, especially that you find. Effectively lead the audit team. If you're there with 1 or 10 people, doesn't matter, other than it's going to be more complex with a larger number of people. You have to support, you have to intervene when there's problems, you have to resolve conflicts, you have to keep people on time, you have to make sure people are doing the right task, focused on the right area. Lead the audit team. You have to conduct a professional audit with factual report that benefits the auditee and the company. You honor confidentialities, internal or external, it doesn't matter. If someone tells you something or you find something, don't go around talking about it with other people. In your audit group, you go in and you say, you never believe what happened with this. You can tell them this is what you've seen. Don't go down breaking down who it was. Use it as a training tool and make sure everyone is aware that they should not discuss this stuff in the same company or in the same department. It shouldn't be something that is brought out as trivial or jovial, because this is people's career, their job, their life is associated with this. It's, again, you want to be a success and you want them to be a success. So treat things in definitely a professional approach. Ethics. When you go in, any auditor must remove themselves from any upcoming audit which they may have some conflict of interest. You have to at least divulge that information, that your previous employer, there was some type of personal friendship there was some type of money involvement. Everyone should be on the same page as to where you stand with this audit group that you're going in to see. Don't get in there and say, oh yeah, I'm going to do a good job, I'll be very ethical. It doesn't matter if you are. People can still come back and say, well, hey, wait, Troy, you had some stock interest in this company. How can you audit these people really independent and uninfluenced by that fact? I don't put myself in that situation. I will say, no, I don't do this. Just continuing with ethics, auditing group has a responsibility to the audit team to provide adequate training of the auditing function, providing retraining to hone your skills, just like you're doing now with this. You want to keep auditors up to date with the newest standards, the newest approach, whatever those are. Just keep them up to date. Typically, I tell you, auditing is not so much understanding skills of technique in building something or making a product. It's really psychology. How do you deal with people? You can look at a process and say, okay, explain it to me and understand it. As long as you're a basic understanding of it, typically you're going to be okay with it. But you really have to deal with people in every walk of life. Everything that's done, you deal with people. The audit group has the responsibility to support the audit team and respect the authority and professional nature of their auditors. And I can tell you this, again, we spoke about a little bit earlier. If management doesn't support you, there's something seriously going on. Management has to support the team, that they have the authority to do the audit, they have the authority to highlight failures and make recommendations if that's your approach, that these all have to be done. You're there as an auditor as a function that you add value to the company. If the company sequesters or squashes you with your ability to do that, then you have to ask yourself, why does this audit group even exist? If it's just there to say, yeah, we have an audit group, then the company really isn't doing the right thing. Thank you very, very much for going through this training. I really appreciate it. I appreciate any feedback you have on this. I'm always looking to try to improve training and myself. You can certainly contact us by calling us, 513-860-3512. Visit our website. There's quite a bit of information on there. That will certainly help you out understanding the nature of the business we're in, pharmaceuticals, and it will certainly help you out with that. There's a free consultation via phone if you have any real issue going on. We'll try to help you out via that way. You can shoot us an email, info@compliance-insight.com. We'll go over that. We'll pass it to the right people and get back to you as quickly as we can. Again, thank you very, very much. We appreciate everything that you do for looking at this and getting us feedback on this. And give us some feedback on this at compliance-insight.com. Thank you.